That's us, KFUG 101.1 FM online, kfugradio.org. 3 minutes into the 1 o'clock hour. Hey, it's a Thursday. You're on the record with Paul Critz. And ordinarily, I'd start the record right then, and we get into some vinyl. We will be doing that later in today's show, but we have a guest. Today is a Plan A show instead of the Plan B show I usually have. First off, I'm joined live in the studio. Amanda Doctor is here with us.
Hi.
And together, we'll be speaking with Supervisor Valerie Starkey, who has also joined us here in the studio. How are you doing today, Valerie?
I am doing so well. Thank you, Mr. Critz and Amanda. I appreciate this.
Mr. Critz.
I'm trying to be formal since, you're on Plan A.
It's a Plan A, yes. Oh, yeah. Somebody might be listening. So, gosh, I don't know. Let's recap everything we were talking about before we went online. We went on the air. So, you...
Wait, I told you that was all off the record.
That's
so
right.
your dog's doing okay then.
So, first off, the biggest question is, you are running again. You are running for a re-election. This is your first re-election, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So, why?
Why? Well, I mean, the answer is truly because I love this job. This has been an honor of a lifetime to be able to serve in this capacity, to see the needs of the people and to actually try and make adjustments and improvements where we can. And it's, again, it's an honor to be able to serve the people. So that's why I'm running again. It's why I ran the first time. I didn't know what I was getting into the first time. I do know what I'm getting into this time. And I couldn't be prouder to put myself out there to accomplish it.
Let's, I saw in relation, I think it was a post in relation, or it was a comment from what you said. I think Jessica mentioned this in her article, actually, the last candidate forum, the Realtors Forum, in which you had referred to 2023 as the year of rolling your sleeves up. Was that what, am I remembering that quote right? Like getting things done in 2023?
So every year I pick a word of the year is what that was referenced to. So in my first year was 2021. It was uncomfortable because I knew I was going to be uncomfortable. So I was going to lean into it. So the word was,
okay, all right.
But also because when you're uncomfortable, what we were talking about off record here, that's when it's when growth happens.
Right.
Because you're allowing yourself to know you're going to be uncomfortable, but you're knowing that you want to get to that comfortable area, so you're growing to get there. So that was 2021. 2022 was momentum.
Okay.
And so when I talked about that is, how can I build things that we need to have done in this community? And that's really making sure we're getting those ad hocs in place for the homeless committee, making sure that we are, identifying the mental health issues and what services can we start getting going, right? And so once you have the momentum, you can't stop us. And then 2023 was action.
Action, okay.
Action.
Okay.
And that's when I rolled up my sleeves, did the dirty work, did what I had to do to try and see if we couldn't accomplish some of the things that we had were ideas and make them real tangible results. And 2024, I did tell them at the forum, and I normally don't do it, but I'm going to do it here again today. My word of 2024 is results. And every year I engrave it on a necklace so that I can remember what it is. And I want results. I want to show the people some, deliverables. What have we been working on? How can we get that mobile crisis unit on the road in July of 2024? Because we worked on it for the last 3 years, and now it's time to show the results.
Okay. So going back to the discomfort that you felt initially, what sorts of things were uncomfortable for you that first year?
Well, I've never sat on a dais like that. I never had to make the decisions that stuck. Was a probation officer, when I did that, I would make all sorts of recommendations, but I always could fall back on, but the judge gets to make the final say. And so it was really uncomfortable knowing that I'm 1/5 of a decision that's getting made on some really important stuff happening in our community. And, being uncomfortable really caused me to go and be extra prepared, because I don't like to show up someplace unprepared. And so that's where it was, uncomfortable being in that situation, how I kind of grew into the growth and to get comfortable is I showed up prepared to be able to make that decision, be able to listen to all sides of an issue, not be so locked into my side or your side, and to be able to say, where can we find some of that common ground in the middle? How can we make this work where we can get there without having to pick a side.
Right. Okay. So, and then the word after that, what was the word the next year? I forgot.
Momentum.
Momentum. All right. How did you build momentum in that year then? Based on-
Momentum. That was one of my favorite years. It was at April 25th, 2022. It was, we gathered everybody together, all these department heads together. We had, the assessor there, the tax collector there, county council, the sheriff, the district attorney, and they're all looking around saying, why are we here? And it was because we wanted to address the issue over behind the gear sheds for those encampments. I'd gotten a call from Chuck Williams. He's a fisherman. And it was when Supervisor Berkowitz had been sick, and so I was getting a lot of calls from District 5.
So you just mean just right up here, right?
Right up here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, I pointed. Apparently the camera's not showing that.
Visual guys.
But he had just voiced some concerns about all the encampments back there. So I got with Dominic Mello, who's the code enforcement officer, and I said, take me back there, because I have to see things too.
Wow.
I can't just be told. So take me back there. Let's look at this. And so while we're back there, it was his idea. And he says, in order for us to fix this and then keep it fixed, because we did that with the Ruth compound years ago for that cleanup. And now it's just back the way it was. But he says, we have to develop the land. We can't just clean it up and then let it sit. We have to figure out a way to make that land usable. So from Dominic's idea and from Chuck Williams giving me a call, we called all these people together and we're like, here's the map. How do we do this? And we came up with some really great ideas. And the ideas included that some of that land was already in tax default, and how could the county acquire it so that we then are not just leaving it in tax default, that we've acquired it so that we can be the ones that decide how to develop it. And when we clean it up, can we perhaps, block off the access to it so people can't be driving big motorhomes back there, which is causing a lot of havoc.
Right. I'm sorry, let me break. How much land are we talking about back in here?
Well, our original ad hoc, we were talking about 3 parcels. But now I think it's about 50 parcels that are back there, very small. But they were all owned by one individual out of the area. So we were able to acquire that. And I think they might be working on more. But in doing so, then we're able to now figure out how to develop it, because it's beautiful land.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Back that way, also back this way, going back any place back where the homeless camps are, you get back in there, it might be a little wet, a little swampy.
Right.
But just gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And so when in doing that, we can't just go in there and clean up the land that displace all the people. So you have to have a plan for that. And that's where, luckily, True North came in. And we started getting that community engagement with Mission Possible and True North. And so they came in and they helped us formulate, okay, we need a shelter, because in order for us to get the pallet homes, you have to have a shelter as well. It's graduated housing. And so they helped us come up with a grant proposal, and we were awarded $10.8 million. And with that, we will be able to provide the pallet homes, the temporary housing, so we can go clean up the encampment. We can move the people along into the temporary shelter, into the pallet homes. So we're not just displacing them.
Yeah.
So that's the plan, and we always have plans, and it might not work out exactly like that, but that is certainly the plan.
Well, just to have a plan, for one thing, is wonderful. Instead of, like you referenced the Ruth compound, just the you can't just shuffle things around. There's too much space here to shuffle.
Exactly. And we don't have enough money.
Right.
We're so restricted on our funding anyway. So we have to think smarter. And in doing that, so that's in 2022, that was the momentum, and I started to build that. And then when we saw the action in 2023 with that $10.8 million grant,
right,
that was, to me, it was like, okay, well, things are happening. And in 2024, I want to see the results. I want that village to be up. I want that shelter to be decided upon, and I want it to get going. So that's kind of my vision.
Okay, where is that now then? Waiting for post action into results here. Where is the village and the plans and the partnership with? True North and Mission Possible.
I'm no longer on the ad hoc because when Supervisor Maston, after Supervisor Berkowitz unfortunately passed, we handed it off to Supervisor Maston. Then she was gone. I came back in temporarily, and now it's Supervisor Wilson. But I am, they update us. Currently, right now, they're trying to find the location for the shelter.
Okay.
And as you know, it was supposed to be north of town, and that fell apart for a lot of different reasons. And so now we're looking for a shelter location. I don't know where they're at with that specifically. I know we have a lot of great ideas, people coming to the table. So we have got to get the shelter because, again, they won't allocate the additional, we can't spend that additional money unless we have a shelter.
Wow. Okay.
It's all processes. So but the pallet homes are slated to be built on the Williams Drive. So with the old mental health area or the new juvenile hall in front of that. That is where the pallet homes are slated. I don't know for sure. Things change a lot, but that's the last I heard.
Does it say, maybe, I don't know, am I perceiving this over the years incorrectly? It seems like that spot back there, Juvie, is just such a jealously hoarded, like, anybody who can just kind of holds on to that and doesn't let anything happen to it. I don't know what kind of weird consolation prize it is for powers that be in Del Norte. But can you shed any light on that?
Well, because we have such little land.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 80% state and federally owned, right? So we only have 20% land, and of that, of it is buildable without having to go through Coastal Commission or CEQA and all the different things.
Is that all it is? Is that it's already built on a piece of land, and so it's a resource that everybody's like, okay.
Yeah, that's my guess. I mean, because it's, number one, county already owns it, so we don't have to go through the acquisition of it. And two, it's buildable, it's zoned right, all the things.
I remember Martha McClure talking about doing something about homelessness and using this back here, and just all the walls came up right away, and that's been 10 years now. So. I'm sorry, Amanda, please go ahead.
I'm just curious. You're asking a lot of the questions that I'm thinking about what sort of barriers we run into when does it have to be an established structure that already exists for the shelter in and of itself? Does that have to be established prior to the pallet homes being opening? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, the process is that it has to be established before the pallet homes can be opened. Right. And I'm going to say that with 98% confidence. Okay. All right. I want to leave a little room for some error here because I'm not in those daily discussions, so I could be wrong. I just want you to know. But there's a lot of different models that you can look at. So they have been looking for existing buildings. So let's say the Sticky Grove building. It would have required a lot of remodeling to make it work for them, right? But there is a company, and it's called, you're going to laugh, but it's called Sprung.com. And they're buildings that come and they get just sprung up and they're affordable. And I think it was Riverside County has done one for a navigation center, a homeless shelter / navigation center. And so somebody had suggested that I look into that. And that's a real possibility. We've got the land, right?
Right.
If we put the pallet homes on there, is there room now for also the shelter? Originally, Daphne from Mission Possible had resisted that idea. She didn't want them too close together. But now, after seeing other models and her going and seeing Rogue River Retreat and that sort of thing, she believes those graduated services in close proximity to each other actually would be an incentive for people to want to move from this to
you can
this
see it
to that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So I think that, again, it's as we learn more, we're a little open to more ideas and different perspectives. So that's kind of I think the question was, where are we at? I think I answered it.
No, yeah, very much so. I was just curious because I've seen what's been going on over here in the access points, which is here, and then another one back up there for just across the street, and there was a row of things that would periodically catch on fire back behind all the buildings there, and that's all been cleared out, and so it's my neighborhood. So I was curious.
Nice. I'm glad that you're paying attention. And one of the things that people will say about homelessness is that we're just going to give handouts, and it's costing us so much money. Think about how much it's costing us by doing nothing. Yeah. And I really hope to drive that point home a lot because our first responders are going out there and then the damage it's doing to our environment back there. And not to mention the thievery that's happening that sometimes encompasses it. Not always, but I'm getting a lot of information from the fishermen back there that there's theft that is happening.
Yeah.
So it costs us a lot to do nothing. And so we've got to do something and try and change the trajectory of how it's always been.
Wow. So I've got specific questions about certain things, but other things that you're hoping to see tangible results from then this year?
This year, yeah. I always, every year, I put on my to-do list several things. And this year, I've focused on the Sheriff's Department. I really believe we've got to fix what's going on there. Sheriff Scott is one of the most amazing leaders that we've seen in our lifetime here in Delaware County. And so in order for him to be completely successful, I believe the Board of Supervisors needed to give him the tools that he needs to be able to create that department and that office. He needs more money for his deputies. He needs better working conditions for his dispatchers. And he's got a laundry list of things. And so Sheriff Scott and myself decided we should create an ad hoc in order to really dive deep into the needs of the Sheriff's Department. And we asked Supervisor Wilson to be on that with us.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, right, because he's had that historic perspective. So we are working toward that. So that's number one on my to-do list. Number two is housing. We talk a lot about the homelessness, but really, why aren't we talking about housing? Workforce housing and all the different housing and for the different levels that we need.
Right.
So our housing element number 6 stated that we need 386 houses within the county. The city needed a certain amount. We needed 386.
That's the current need. That's what we don't have.
It's a 10-year 10-year cycle. I want to say it might be a 6-year cycle, but the housing element that comes out every 6 or 10 years. And that's the current, what we just recently were notified is that we need 386 houses.
Wow.
What can we do as a community? So the county has created the accessory dwelling unit ordinances as far as JDUs, the junior accessory dwelling units.
Say that 3 times fast.
But so the ADUs
Now
and
save
the
that for the
JADUs.
drinking round. We'll save that for there you go. Right?
Oh, we weren't supposed to drink?
No. Squirrels go wild tonight.
My bad. But so we passed those ordinances, and so I've met with the director of CDD, the Community Development Department, our assessor, and our tax collector. Again, pulling as many people into the room, and these are all women. And we sat around a table, and we were just powerhouses. Like, what can we do? Let's talk about it. What could we do different? And ideas that were floated around was set plans for the ADUs, right? So they're already approved, so people can go in and have 4 to choose from.
Oh, wow.
And so that would save you a lot of time and money on the front end because you're choosing one of those set plans already in place.
That saves the person who walks through the door money because they don't have to pay for their own plans to be drawn up.
Exactly. It's already gone through that permitting process. It's already been approved.
Brilliant.
So, and then how can we streamline that for folks too? So when they go in and they want to put an accessory dwelling unit on their existing thing, is there a way for us to streamline the process for them so they're assigned one particular person who walks them through the whole process? So that was some ideas. We talked a little bit like Leaf Circle is that mobile home community where you own the land.
Right.
We think more of those might be important to have around. So we came up with a whole huge list, and the city is already created 303, or in the process of creating 303 doors or units. So apartment complexes. There's 4 or 5 different projects that they're doing where they are creating more housing here locally, not just for the elderly, but low income as well as moderate income. And so between the city and the county, I am really hoping, I want the county to at least get 100 units built this year, or at least in the process of
So now when you say the county get 100 units built, you mean the government, the county government allowing 100 units to be, you're not talking public housing, you're talking about something. Exactly. Right.
I mean, I can swing a hammer, but no, it's not the actual county.
You've been drinking.
No, it's the county encouraging 100 new units.
Gotcha.
Right?
Exactly,
How do we do that? You know, whether it is these set plans, whether it is that we entice developers by, modifying the deeds. There's all kinds of ways in which we can do it. My goal is to have in process at least 100 dwellings or units or doors, however you want to identify it, within this next year, because housing is a huge thing.
Rob DeRigo would not let me not answer this question, I'm sure. Any thoughts about regulating Airbnb stuff and vacation rentals? I know I've done videos for people who actually are selling homes that had been long-term sort of vacation rentals, and now they're on the market. They're very high-end homes on Pebble Beach and things like that. But there's like 300 plus in the county, from what I understand.
Well, and I'm glad you asked that. And I want to just say I love Robert, and I think he has great ideas. So I'm going to just put that out there.
This guy's here to see me. He's here to pick up a thumb drive, and he doesn't know we're on the air.
That's okay. Yeah. It's all right. Any other time.
I've been sick.
No problem.
I'll give you a call, okay? All right, thanks a lot.
It hurt my back.
Okay.
Thank you. This is
we're family friendly here.
No, exactly.
So
it's right in the front door.
With that said, there's 230 identified VRBOs.
Is it just two? Okay.
On our tax, what our tax collector has identified.
Okay.
There could be more. There could be less, but they've identified 230. So when part of that meeting that we had is that we were looking at the totality of the picture, because you can't ever look at one thing. You can't just fix one area and think it's going to solve all the problems for the rest of it. So we looked at the Airbnbs. Are they creating a housing crisis? It's definitely contributing to it.
Okay.
Right? Absolutely.
Just by restricting supply, right?
Supply, yes. However, we make $910,000 on TOT because of those Airbnbs. So as a county, should we be saying, nope, we're not going to do that anymore, and now we're down $1 million? Or should we think we need to create more housing so that we can all have a place here? It's that meeting in the middle. It's that common ground. How can we, because I don't want to restrict property owners' ability.
Right.
Never.
Yeah,
it's just something I can't do. If you buy a piece of property and that's what you want to do with it, I want to support that.
Right.
But at the same time, how can we then create more housing availability? So in the ordinances for the ADUs, we do have that it cannot be used for an Airbnb. So we have restricted it, right? It has to be a long-term housing.
I see what you're saying. So rather restricting its growth, then you're not. Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Is there any sort of cap on not not the ADUs, but somebody's main house doing that, or is that? And I'm not down. I don't want to see that. I think that really is a government overreach in a lot of ways, but it is a unique situation in this entire state right now. So
I think we would be foolish not to look at it.
Yeah.
Right. I think that you have to look at it. There is no restrictions currently, nor do I think that we should put restrictions on. However, I want to be cognizant of the people like Robert, who has a real concern that we are going to become a county where there is no housing for the working class people.
Yeah.
And I get that. So, but let's bring it all to the table. Let's figure out how we can solve it. Perhaps we need more RV parks. I don't know. I'm saying that let's figure it out together instead of against each other.
Yeah, good point. And I don't mean to be flip about it too, but I don't think if the two properties I was familiar with that I did videos for, they weren't going to ever be made available to the working stiffs of Del Norte to live in. They're on Pebble Beach. They're on the river. It's not going to be something that's just going to be dropped into the housing pool. Good luck. Wow. Okay. Seeing that all of these things kind of dovetail and come nose to nose, and other body parts too all the time too. That's a very difficult sort of pull a thread and see what comes loose.
Right.
Wow. Amanda, anything?
I'm curious if we have, because this is a thing that's discussed a lot locally, the whole vacation rental versus people actually trying to afford housing here, and outside investors coming in raising up the cost of living for the rest of us and things like that. Do we actually have data on these vacation rentals as it pertains to like locally owned versus out of area investors
good question.
coming in and snatching them up?
That's a great question.
I would
and
rather we were ripping our own selves
Yes,
off.
exactly.
For the locals.
Well, no, I mean, I think that a lot of people that's a livelihood for them, and we have locals that have
Yes.
bought other properties, and it's a livelihood for them. I do believe that that's a very good question, and I could pull that data. It's easy to pull, is to identify all the vacation rentals and then find out who owns them. I don't know that at this point it would alter how we do things.
Yeah.
No, but it could alter the narrative. It could alter the discussion around the issue.
Yeah.
Like that,
and I think it's a good discussion point to have.
The reason I'm concerned about this is I grew up here, but I spent almost a decade out in Colorado Springs, and there was just this huge influx of people when recreational marijuana passed. A whole bunch of out-of-area investors came in and plucked up all of the real estate that they possibly could.
Wow.
And over the course of like 4 years, rents doubled, but that wages didn't. And so people were getting pushed out of their homes, and I'm seeing the same thing happen here. And that's where my concern comes into play, because yeah, absolutely, local business people who are getting their livelihoods through these vacation rentals, who saved up to buy these places, more power to them. But if it's just some rich suit in a city who's snatching up as many properties as he can, thinking, but it's cheap relative to California, well, okay, but let's look at our median income here.
I got a question. Is this information then? Is this something that somebody can walk in off the street and look up?
I believe so.
It's not. You don't have to be top secret. Like you. It doesn't have to classified or anything like that.
I believe
should
it's
find that
all public information.
Okay,
I think through
okay.
the assessor's office or through the tax collector's office.
That sounds like a Redwood Voice thing.
Yeah, even on our GIS system, like you can go find a lot of land and you can find out who owns it. If it's somebody, if it's a local address or not a local address.
Yeah,
So
right.
I believe it is public information.
Okay.
It seems to me that there's a little bit of disconnect in understanding, because our local little micro economy here is so much different than beyond the Redwood
Right.
curtain, And so somebody out of area who's not familiar with the local economy is like, oh, well, this is totally cheap for California, so I'm going to charge X amount for rent. And meanwhile, that takes 3 people working full time
Right.
to afford the rent on this one tiny place. And by the way, not a lot of landlords will rent to people just as roommates. You got to be married or whatever. So, I mean, that contributes to housing inaccessibility as well. So I'd love to see the numbers. I don't know if it would change the direction that we take, but I think it's something to think about in regards to how we keep housing accessible for everybody, including the people who are already here.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so that's our stance on this issue. So no, seriously, I don't mean that. So now, one thing came out in the. Oh, by the way, you're tuned to KFUG Community Radio. 1:30. Wait, my glasses on my forehead. Yes, it is 1:30 the time. Paul Critz with you. We are on the record. Amanda Doctor along for the ride today, and we're both speaking with Supervisor Valerie Starkey, who is seeking re-election this year, and so we're just kind of going through the greatest hits. One thing I saw from the Jessica St. Andrews article on the forum, the Realtors Forum, that all the candidates were at, was that the 33 overdoses this last year or the year before, I guess, whatever the
Those
most
are the
recent.
2022 numbers.
Right.
And then when I spoke with Sheriff Scott, he thinks it's going to be right on track for that again. And, we don't have, a place that we can go in real time and look at it. But what we can do is on Facebook, on the scanner feed.
Yeah.
You see it almost every other day that there's an overdose, shallow breathing, and first responders are going out there and administering Narcan. So it's in our community. We're seeing it. Del Norte County had the first 0 to 5 year old death. We had a 2-year-old that died from fentanyl.
Wow.
So it's something we've got to really look at and address. And not only with enforcement to keep drugs out of the community, that's an obvious answer, but those that are already addicted, how can we get them off fentanyl? And it's a tough one to crack.
Yeah.
I mean, again, being a probation officer for all those years, our big thing was methamphetamine back.
Right.
Not my big thing, but geez,
That was the focus.
I've moved
yeah.
from drinking
We
now.
got it. That was the gotcha question.
Yeah. But we would have to find, services in order to get people to curb their methamphetamine habit. And, that's still a tough habit to break.
Absolutely.
But this opioids is an incredible drug to have to get off of. And we have to look at it differently. And I'll tell you, even, having been in that field for all those years, when somebody told me that we were going to be doing Suboxone or, harm reduction, that was such a new concept to me. And it took a while for me to wrap my head around it.
Right.
It's like, what do you mean harm reduction? We're going to slowly taper them off, but we're still going to let them use. That was just the weirdest thing to me. But what we've learned and evidence-based practices have proven is that you can't just cold turkey off of that.
No.
You
It's
have
dangerous,
to
yeah.
do the harm reduction and get them to slowly taper off of it. And we want success stories. We don't want people to overdose because they've been off it and then they just use once and it's slightly more than they're used to and then they die.
Right.
I mean, the impacts for that, but we also don't want them to continue that substance use either, because with that comes a lot of various other issues that are costly to a community.
Yeah.
Is the old school approach, the cold turkey, these people are criminals, is that still out there?
I
thought this is a stupid question, but I've had folks like Roger Gitlin in front of a microphone who sounds very compassionate about it's an illness and we need to treat these people with compassion and things like that. It's fashionable to speak that way, I understand. Is that just the fashion? Is that still?
You would have to ask the individual people.
I guess I'm asking. Yeah, that's
Yeah, you're
that's not a
asking
fair
me,
question.
and
But do you encourage? I mean, not encourage, but do you encounter it?
Do I counter?
Do you
Yes.
encounter that attitude a lot still?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Maybe it's the circles I move in. It's reasonable people I talk to all the time. I don't. Yeah.
I think the narrative is shifting because I think more and more people like you yourself, as they are learning about the data, as they are learning about evidence-based practices for harm reduction and kicking addiction, I think more and more people are understanding, okay, the old way is not working and we're moving towards it. And there's always going to be the dinosaurs screeching really loud as they sink into the tar pits of irrelevancy when they cling to their old ways. Like, that's just always going to be a thing. But I do see the narrative shifting. And maybe it's just that I spend my time around more decent people, but people that I feel like...
Well, we're kind of blocking ourselves in here.
We are, yeah, that's true.
One thing
That's
I want to
true.
People
say is
surprise
that for this last year in 2023, we did that Reaching Rural initiative, and that was that nationwide response to rural communities. And one of the best things that came out of that is we've got to do a field trip, or however they want to do it, to Arizona and to a rural community in Kingman, Arizona, and their police chief standing up there and saying, "It took me so long to get on board with this, but now having learned and I've been able to change my mindset on how we approach it." I think we need more people like that coming forward. Law enforcement, we get embedded into our belief systems, and some of it is just, that's part of the job.
Yeah.
And unless you kind of look back and kind of adapt with the times and realize that, what happened in the 50s and kicking, smoking, or whatever it was in the 50s that you were doing isn't the same as opioid use today.
Right,
It's
right.
a whole new beast. So it's about adjusting and adapting with times.
I saw a woman yesterday, day before, just on the street. That the first time I've ever seen that here, but it looked like it was the trank double over thing, and I'm like, oh my God, because I hadn't seen that, I hadn't heard about any of that here now, and I don't even know if that's what I saw. And I don't mean to start,
right.
but that's not
Well,
right.
yeah, you go to Humboldt County and you see that quite a bit.
Do you really?
Just on the sidewalks, and that just either sleeping or in some sort of drug-induced situation.
You mentioned the Reaching Rural initiative that you were part of. I know Jermaine Brubaker was also a part of that. What became of that? What did you guys get out of that?
So in December, we were able to present to the Reaching Rural, the nationwide group of, it wasn't judges as much as panelists, our idea, which is a mobile MAT program, that's medication-assisted treatment, mobile, because right now we have about 24 people that travel down to Humboldt County, to Aegis in Humboldt County, to get methadone. And so just
Wow.
we feel we could touch more people if it was up here and if it was accessible to people. So we
save costs too. Those people are all there's a cab company that's
to it.
contracted
Yes,
to take them down.
Exactly. So with a mobile unit, we'll be able to be in Klamath one day, up in Smith River one day. We were granted $100,000 in order to formulate that plan and to get that going.
Wow.
That is our next step. We presented to the Board of Supervisors our Reaching Rural initiative, and they appointed all of us who were working on that to the opioid settlement working group committee. Next board meeting, you'll see that we are going to be starting, we asked for some approval for allocation of funding to be able to start a journey map in order to find out where on these people's journey of using substances were the breakdowns. We're going to be talking with families who unfortunately lost somebody to an overdose. Where was it that we could have stepped in to stop it? And so that's going to be real important work, and that's going to be this next year. So, but the Reaching Rural was one of the most amazing opportunities that little old Delnart County got to participate in, because we were on the same stage with national level programs, and we had the assistance and that technical advisories from people that were doing this on a higher level. And little old Delnart County got that same opportunity. So it was really wonderful.
So the Reaching Rural initiative, it wasn't so much about putting resources that are currently available with the from the federal government on the ground. It was the federal government learning from the folks out here who are living the reality. That's amazing. Wow.
Right, because so many rural communities we get forgotten.
Yeah.
Because
that's part of the definition of
right,
us here, yeah.
Right. You got the big numbers in your urban areas, and that's where they're going to send all their resources. And so rural little towns, we have to figure out how to provide those services or those resources with a very limited capacity.
Right.
So it's really been wonderful, because even from that, last week I went to Texas and was able to talk about how mental health and jails are housing the mentally ill now, and how that's impacting rural jails.
Yes.
And what can we do to perhaps divert that early on? And one of we've got some stuff in the works again, but we have that mobile crisis unit coming out. Sutter Coast has developed what they call an empath unit, and they're building that. So when someone is apparently 5150 and they need to go to the emergency room, we're going to be able to have a place to put them, let them, decompress and perhaps
not be in jail cell?
Not be in an ER room or a jail cell.
Wow.
And we really do believe that environment is going to be more conducive to not having to ship them out of town to acute mental health facility. So those are going to really reduce some of the numbers that we're seeing and the costs associated with that.
Right. And that came from Sutter?
Sutter, yeah. Well, it was all part of this relationship that we built right after I got on the board. And Mitch Hanna called, and he was just, he's the CEO. Yeah. And I love him. He called, he was just upset because we weren't doing enough, because his ER was filled with all these mental health patients.
Wow.
And so I went out to lunch with him, and I'm like, what can we do to fix it? And so we came up with all these 3 solutions. We got the mobile unit that's hitting July of 2024. We got the empath unit, and we've got better communication now. I check in with them once every 3 or 4 months. Like, how's everything going? Are we doing okay? What can we do better? And that's really been advantageous for all of us.
Right. I wanted to ask this question, and I don't think I'm the person to ask it, because I'm a guy, and I'm curious about your experience, if it has been an experience at all for you, being the only woman on the Board of Supervisors in Delnart County.
That's such a tough question to answer. Does it play into some of the frustration that I feel? It absolutely does. Do I think that they intentionally, treat me differently because I'm a woman? I wouldn't be able to say that for certain. It is tough, and I'm not man bashing here, but women have a different perspective on things. Women, we're the helpers, we're the fixers,
nurturers.
we're the nurturers. And so, a lot of times that's where I go, right? When we have somebody speaking and, they're passionate about it, my heart goes out to them. And not all men, but men aren't necessarily equipped to do that.
No.
So,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be, bashing men by any stretch, but women are just different. So has it been obvious? Yes, I think it's obvious. I'm the only woman on the board. But we have some really good, compassionate men on the board as well.
I was wondering, just because you mentioned about being in the room with the other department heads and all women, and you just jumped right into getting something done.
Yeah, we do. And not that men don't. It's just I feel like
It's different. It's a different thing. Yeah.
I don't think it's a moral failing. I don't think we're like, oh, men are bad and they're incapable of being nurturing, because that's not true at all.
Right.
Like, we know men can be wonderful caregivers and nurturers. We know this, but there is a different lens through which they perceive information, and where someone might see a threat to homeland security, another one might see a humanitarian crisis.
Right. Right.
And it's about finding that balance, the common ground, the overlap, and differentiating those perspectives. So you're like, okay, we actually do care about the same things, but we are talking about it very differently.
right. That men are from Mars, women are from Venus perspective. Right. We're still on different planets.
My goodness. Well, thanks for keeping it safe for me, because I didn't want to feel under attack for being here.
Well,
I have a dad.
you get a pass.
Yeah, but
my dad, he does this to me all the time, and he's joking, but he'll be like, shouldn't you be in the kitchen getting something done?
See, now, isn't your dad retired law enforcement?
Yeah.
I met him once,
Yeah, I know you did.
and he was wearing a gun.
Yeah. You I think you wanted to date his daughter,
Yeah,
my younger
one
sister.
time. Yeah. And that's the price I had to pay, was to sit and have an awkward conversation with him. He just got home from work. He's sitting there. Yeah, that was fun.
Was he cleaning it?
No, nothing like that. No, he's a very nice guy. 1:44 the time, 16 minutes away from 2 o'clock. Valerie Starkey, Supervisor District 2. How's the campaign going?
It's great. I have had so much support, and I'm so blessed with all the support that I've received. I've collected close to $20,000 at this point, and a lot.
What's
of
it typically cost to run? Would it?
I could do it for probably.
It's not a bidding thing.
I'll put it out for RFP.
Depends on what you're putting into it.
It
right?
does.
Yeah.
A lot has to say, like, grassroots campaigns, you could get a lot of traction for under $2,000. I mean,
Wow.
I've been just very fortunate that it's not only some larger donors, but also, all the $25 checks that I've received, the under 99, I think I have about $8,000 just in under $99 contributions. So
That is pretty impressive for a small town.
It is. And it just shows that people are believing in me and they wanting to see me continue.
Those
And
checks mean a lot too. Those little ones, don't they?
do.
Yeah.
Because somebody put, they're writing out that check saying, I believe in you for $50, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And but no, I've got good signs up. I've got a good campaign team. We're getting the word out. I've got mailers going out. And campaigning is getting in the way of my job, but at the same time, it's part of the place that you have to be in here. But I really rather be just doing the work.
Right.
Yeah.
That was kind of the question where I was headed next. Running the first time versus running for re-election, what differences do you see in yourself as you've grown through the process, and also in the process in and of itself?
Well, yeah, when you ran the first time, it was you didn't have the job.
It didn't get in the way of the job.
So but I didn't know as much. And I look back and I'm like, what an idiot. You had no idea the process in which that takes for things to get done. And now I know it. And, again, you're at an advantage at sometimes when you're the incumbent because you've been doing the work. And I saw that at the forum. Supervisor Wilson and I were able to really answer those questions, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to know it.
Yeah.
You guys are counting on us to know it.
Right.
And the challengers aren't necessarily given that same information. They don't have that same advantage. So I do feel for them. But back being in that, it's one of those things that you jump in, you learn it, you figure it out, you do the best that you can do. And I'm constantly trying to learn. I attend as many of the meetings as possible outside of my original committees because I feel it's important for me to understand about wind power. It's important for me to understand about the tourism and the economic drivers. So in addition to the regular committees, I'm constantly challenging myself to step outside of my comfort zone in order to make sure that we're really looking out for the overall health of Del Norte County.
Wow. Thoughts on wind power? And I know enough to know that I don't know enough.
Yeah, and that's going to be my answer too. I was
Right.
really fortunate. The Yurok tribe put together a summit on Tuesday.
I saw that. Yeah.
It was the most fascinating. I haven't even been able to write a post on Facebook about it. I like to really communicate with the public because there was just so much information that came out of it. And the one thing that is, I think, really what the community needs to know is that these leases that are happening off the shores, they're not up to us.
Yeah.
They're up to the federal government, and they're leasing with these companies. So on Tuesday, we got to hear from the federal government. The BOEM is what they call it, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. We got to hear from the people that were leased that land. We got to hear from the local community and how it was impacting them. And then how were they, Humboldt, able to draw down the community benefits that are going to come from this. And that's where we need to make sure we're at the table. We're having these discussions. I asked a harbor commissioner in Humboldt County, I said, how did you find out? Were you part of the discussion about them leasing your land or the land off of Humboldt County? He goes, I read about it in the paper. So that's, if we're not paying attention and we're not at the table, if we're not the smartest people at the table when it comes time to get those community benefits assessments, to mitigate the loss that potentially it could have on our fishermen, the loss that it could have on our tourism, whatever the case may be, we have to be able to know upfront what we're going to negotiate for. Because again, it could be happening with or without our buy-in. Right. And so if we need to be ready for it and be able to argue for the best possible outcome.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize that the leasing was happening, and I've read stuff about at least the what's been talked about down in Humboldt, that it was happening in federal waters, and that the leases would happen, out there regardless of what we. So reading about the forum, the last forum that you and Dean specifically, I just like both comments. Everybody seemed to be, no, we've got to be at this table. It's going to happen. We can't, whatever we believe, whatever we think, this is going to happen. We have to be at this table.
It's happening with or without us. We
So might
better
as well
get on board
with,
and learn as much as we can.
That, what you resist persists. Right?
Yeah, right.
And so by just sticking our head in the sand and being like, well, we don't want it, and it says it doesn't, we got to make sure that we're understanding the process.
Right.
What was interesting too is that the federal waters, the state has waters out to about 3 miles, and the federal waters go from 17 to 60 or 200 actually.
Okay.
And these turbines that they're wanting to put in are going to be between 20 and 60 miles out. So, it'll be interesting. They've never done that before. And again,
that far out?
That far out.
Right.
So what's happening on the East Coast, they're much farther, or they're closer.
They're in closer, yeah. I saw something online this morning, I forget what it was, but it was like just a shot, and it was an incidental shot at some country in Europe, and here are these 3 big turbines out to sea, and you could see them, and they look pretty, they're graceful. I was going, oh, look at that, that's
when
nice.
You think about, people are like, it's going to be an eyesore, it's going to be an eyesore.
No,
Point St. George Lighthouse is 3 miles off. How often do we get to see that?
Right.
These are going to be 20 miles or more off.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, if you've driven across a country, you find a whole bunch of wind turbines in this nation that I didn't know was there. I just thought they were all in the Altamont Pass, and that's all they were. But Kansas and Texas and all of these, I was driving last time, driving across Kansas, and we're Googling as we're driving, Lisa and I, and it's like, it's on the verge at the time. This was a few years ago of actually supplanting like fossil fuels in Kansas, renewable energy in Kansas, because there's so much wind and so many wind turbines. And I think they're beautiful. I think they're
I'd
really
rather look at those than the oil hammer things. Like,
that's true. Yeah,
what
exactly.
are those called? I don't even know.
What's so interesting
Derricks.
too is all the various
Maybe.
things that
Might
you
not
have
know.
to think about. Like they were talking about bird patterns and their
migration,
wingspan, and so it's so much goes into these decisions that it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
such a good summit. I can't say enough about that summit. I wish I could succinctly describe how amazing it was for a post on Facebook. I haven't been able to put it in words yet, though.
There's I think, isn't there a fact-finding sort of public community meeting thing happening at the Methodist Church?
Is that what you were
on
talking? Oh.
the 2nd of March, I
Right,
believe.
right.
Yes, I'm going to go to that too.
Yeah, we'll be there
That's
too,
going to
yeah.
be an interesting one too. So,
Interesting.
but I think we just need to keep educating, and that's up to our leaders, right? We need to be the ones that are going and getting the information and making sure we're sharing that out.
Right. I have anything else you'd like to ask?
My brain deleted it, so it couldn't have been
Then
important.
the last thing we always ask, is there anything that we didn't ask that you'd like to share or say or mention? Make sure it gets said.
Well, I do want to say thank you for having me here. I really do always appreciate being able to just kind of come and just talk about, government and what's going on. And I do appreciate that. And
Well, if you ever want to show.
you want to
She's not busy enough.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Just come in here and spend some
Oh my gosh,
records.
that would be kind of fun, actually.
Wouldn't it be, right?
Yeah.
See, it'd be therapeutic. It'd be
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
call in. Let's talk with Val.
You could have office hours, though.
That's it, exactly.
But
you
no,
have
I
to
love
make
this
song
job.
requests.
I hope that shows. I hope it shows that how much I care about this community, and I'm here to do the work. I want to continue doing the work, and we'll see how it goes. So March 5th is the election. It is early. It's the primary is March 5th, and that's so important for people to know. It's not in June. It's March.
So this is the election for you. It's not like top two vote getters will go
No,
on.
just
This is
because
it.
it's only me and my opponent.
So it's gonna be-
it'll
yeah,
be
yeah,
decided
yeah.
on
Wow.
March 5th.
All right.
I remember my question.
Oh,
Okay.
good.
What advice do you have for the challengers or people who are running the first time?
Oh, very good.
That's really good. Don't give up. Keep going and making sure that you're getting out there. Get outside your comfort zone. Talk with people. Have your ideas. Don't just say you have an idea and then not share what those ideas are. If you're thinking that somehow you need to kind of gatekeep that because that's how you're going to get your foot in the door, I promise I'm not going to steal your
I want
idea.
proprietary revolution. And only for me. No,
Right.
Sorry.
We're too small. If you have a really good idea, bring it forward. Let's talk about it. And, you could still get elected. It's just, so don't gatekeep. But really, just don't give up the faith. You're putting yourself out there, and a lot of people don't do that. So the fact that you're putting yourself out there and making yourself available is amazing. And you should be proud of yourself for doing that.
Right on.
Valerie Starkey, what's up next? What's next on your schedule then for campaigning at least? Any events?
I'm going to go fold 955 letters.
Are you gonna have a little
Little fold
stuffing
party. Yeah, my poor family, they get stuck with that. We're having a fold party tonight.
Get some good music. Bring some
Before dinner, no
beverages.
one eats till they're
Yeah,
full.
no one's eating the pizza because I don't want that grimy pizza sauce on the letters.
Valerie Starkey, Supervisor District 2, Delaware County. Thank you so very much for coming in today.